I've had hurdles every step of the way. Why can't you guys make this easy? Why can't somebody say, hey, what can we do to help them? I shouldn't have to request meeting after meeting after meeting to speak to the supervisor, getting nowhere, walking into a room where I can cut the tension in the air with a knife.
If there were a system in place that allowed for nice, easy communication among each one of these disparate areas, the experience could be much better for the public.
All right, I want to welcome everyone to another episode of the Dream BuildCast, a place where we can all share ideas and hopefully we're being helpful to someone as we just figure out where to start on projects. As always, today we have Devon Ellis from Ellis Engineering and Construction Management Services. He has his formal training in civil and structural engineering, but has also a background in building inspection, and currently operates as a structural engineer and construction manager within so many different spaces, including interfacing with my company, Dream Builders. So we have Alex Walker here. Give us a wave, Alex, just in case anybody's curious. We'll do a process of elimination thing here. He's with Dream Key Partners. He's a real estate development manager. And also, he will soon be an architect, which is super exciting. And today, another applicable hat we should probably mention. He was a plan reviewer for 5 years, right, Alex?
Correct.
Is that 5 years? Yeah. Okay. Definitely, yeah, it's been a while. So, jack of all trades over here. And of course, I'm Nicholas Robinson and with Dream Builders. Architect and owner of Dream Builders and co-founder, I would have to say. And today we are here with Baron Hentz from BKH Electric, and he's the owner and also the master electrician. And ultimately, he's going to be our vehicle today for exploring how to pretty much execute a project from start to finish as an owner operator. And he and I linked up on his project. Was that 2023 or 24?
No, it was 2023.
2023. And the reason we've been linked up so long is because, well, the process has took a little bit long. So I was, like, hey, Baron, we have this podcast. I think you would be a good case study because we have a lot to talk about. But I just want to give you 2 more seconds to just let us know a little bit more about your company and kind of the spaces in which you all operate within.
Sure. My name is Baron Hentz. As Nick said, I'm a master electrician. I'm the owner of BKH Electric, and I'm also a state licensed electrical inspector. Been in business for 10 years. It'll be 11 years this coming May. Started out doing this in 1996 in the United States Army. Once I got out, I pretty much decided I wanted to, carry on this as a career. I wanted something when I went in, I wanted something that was going to carry on outside in the civilian world. We do mostly commercial, but we do commercial, residential, and industrial. But I focus more on commercial, and we do mostly remodel.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. And I don't know if you've probably mentioned, your service within the military, and we obviously appreciate that just as civilians, and also that I guess it gives you a very interesting take on, service, because what does that look like when you're in the military with providing that service? What were you actually doing at that point?
If you want to be honest, we were, my MOS was 51 Romeo, which was interior, exterior electrician at the time. We did more bricklaying than electrical, just to be honest, because in the military, whatever state we were in, the state required a licensed electricians, and neither one of us carried the actual state license for that area. So we couldn't touch it,
Got you. Okay. Well, look, now you get plenty here.
I got plenty. So I was in 1996. I did 2 years active and then 2 years reserves and then 4 years IR.
Okay.
And then once I got out, I decided that this is something I wanted to do. I started an apprenticeship. Did my apprenticeship starting in, don't get me to trying to remember the math, but I got my master's license in 2007. Let's just say that.
Okay. Nope. That's super fair.
I've been a master electrician since 2007, and I didn't start out to be a owner operator of a business. I was working on the side. I was working at 𝘕_Energies as a lineman, so I do hold a journeyman lineman's card for 𝘕_Energies, our utility here. I was working on the side as an electrician, and I was making more on the side than I was making at 𝘕_Energies. So it was kind of a no-brainer because I was kind of burning the candle from both ends, and I had to make a quick decision, and it was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Awesome. Well, shoot. I mean, look, keeping the ball rolling. No, nothing wrong with that. Definitely admire the tenacity to kind of, follow the path. Sometimes it's always hard to follow that piece of candy, right? Security
Absolutely.
is a lot of things that, people find themselves chasing, right? And Devon and I actually have this conversation every time things get a little complicated on my end, or he's like, I've been there. The whole point is to not quit and not abandon the path. So let's jump right into it. I'm gonna probably want Alex and Devon to kind of give us some quick thoughts on the topics first, and then Baron, we really want you to just give us your experience within that space.
Absolutely.
So building acquisition. I know this is that's like literally the beginning of figuring out what it is you're even working with. Let's start with you, Alex. You're in the development space. Obviously, you all are looking at buildings like first, right? You're building out those performas. What can you say that matters within the building acquisition space as you start this process?
Essentially, you want to go through your diligence and having enough leeway for your diligence period to make sure it's a building you want to purchase. And the diligence period really comes down to the time, 60, 90 days where you do all your research, get all your reports, and you expend a little money while you're essentially reserving the right to purchase the building or land. A lot of times when you do that, you will want to have, if it's an existing building, you're going to want to look at, are there a phase one, and whether it's a new building or if it's a vacant piece of land or a building, you're going to want to have a phase one. You want to know what the environmental background is for a building. And so typically you'll put a 90-day period on it, maybe with a couple extensions that might have to have more diligence money put down. Depending on the size of the building, it could be from $1,000 to $10,000 or more, depending on the size and scope of the building or piece of land one would be looking at. And so you're going to be looking at the structure. You're going to be looking at what needs to be done. You're to come up in that diligence period with hopefully what would be a rough cost for what you would want to do. And at the end of the period, you say, I'm going to not go forward, or we're going to keep on going in the process and continue to purchase the building. And so that diligence period is a critical time because it's a go, no go question that you have to answer for yourself in that process. So, I mean, if you have not a lot of experience in doing that, I mean, it can be a very difficult. You're expending some dollars, so you got to come up with a budget. Because doing a phase one, getting people walking through the building, sometimes, I mean, you are paying for people's time. So in addition to whether it's a refundable or non-refundable earnest money that one puts down, and it can be different in each state that you operate in, you would want to have a clear-cut budget of how much you would want to spend to get some ideas of what you can or cannot do on the property. As we spoke about at one other point in time, if that diligence period could include rezoning, that, hey, I want a 6-month due diligence period. In that time, I may have to go through zoning, and that could be the condition that you put conditions on in order to purchase the building. And that's all an upfront negotiation if you're like really sold on the building or on what you want to do in that space or the piece of land. So there are a lot of things you want to think about, contemplate when doing your due diligence, because you could buy something and not have done the proper due diligence and you're stuck with it. And maybe you can't rezone it for what you wanted to do. Or maybe the building's in worse environmental shape than what you thought. So now could be stuck with an albatross of something and don't know what to do.
I got you. So Devon, being in, building inspection, what can you I'm pretty sure you could piggyback off of that.
Yeah, so essentially just expanding upon what Alex already alluded to. I mean, basically, one needs to make sure the building is suitable for whatever use they're going to be putting into the building. So, as an example, let's say the building has multiple stories. You have it depending on what the building used to be used for and what your intended use is. You could run into significant code issues. For example, if you have a building that was previously used as an office and now you want to change it to another use, an industrial use, for example, the size of the building now comes into play. The allowable number of stories, all of that kind of stuff are going to dictate what kind of safety devices, what kind of safety features, number of egress paths, number of exit doors, all of these kinds of stuff come into play. Another consideration, obviously, would be let's say this building has 2 stories, and in the past, this building, the upper level used to be used for residential purposes, and now you want to use it as an office space or some other kind of space. Then now is the second floor adequate to support the new use? It might not be, because a residential building, the required loadings are lower than those for most commercial occupancies. The commercial occupancy loading are going to range, 50 to, if it's storage, all the way up to 250 pounds per square foot as compared to a residential, where the live load requirement is somewhere around 40 pounds per square foot. So all of these things have to be taken into account before one makes a decision whether this is the right building or not. I mean, clearly, if with enough money you can get just about any building to be able to accommodate any kind of use. The issue is, some buildings might require a significant amount more modifications than another kind of building. So all of these considerations have to be taken into account, over and above those that Alex mentioned.
Okay. So Baron, looking at your actual experience, your building, tell us about, I guess, what made that building that you acquired attractive, and kind of what was your process for acquisition?
To be honest, I saw the building on Facebook. It was an advertisement from the city of Milwaukee saying this building was, they were, accepting bids for this particular space. And I had been just watching this building for years, just driving by it, just like, hey, I see the car stereo shop. I mean, is there anybody in there? Is it, it just looked like a building, and it just caught my eye. It's been on my radar for several years. When it came up, I put my bid in. I actually put my bid in at the last minute. So I think I saw it on Friday. All the bids were supposed to be in by Tuesday. Okay. So I got everything in at the last minute. Once I won the bid, I got a chance to walk through, and it was everything that I wanted. It was perfect for what I was, looking for. And to be honest, I wasn't really looking for a space because I'm leasing a space now, but this seemed to fit every last one of my needs.
Okay. Awesome. So what were some of those factors, like what were some of those aspects in which were made it perfect? Was it the physical space? Was it the location? What made it perfect?
Well, the main thing was the physical space. All right. So it's a 8,000 square foot building, 2-story. It's already framed up for a shop, which is, where we keep most of our materials. It had 3 garages, a place where I can store my scissors lift, generators, and it had a 2,000 square foot parking lot. So
you use shop to mean contractor shop.
Correct.
You use shop, not a retail shop, but a
contractor shop. Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Awesome.
So, and then, once I walked through it, I mean, it had a lot of damage because it had been vacant for over 35 years. But being in construction for nearly 30 years, I can see the potential. The foundation was great. The roof was horrible, but I know I have a lot of connections. I know a lot of, contractors, and, we were able to work some things out.
Okay. That's fantastic. So literally was kind of a good fit for you, probably a nightmare for some other people, right?
It was a perfect fit for me if I can actually get inside of it.
What's the current status?
So right now, the current status is we just recently came out of the plan review for the HVAC. So now we're in the plumbing plan review. My plumber, I didn't have plans drawn for the second floor. So being that this is one entire system, they wanted a plan for the second floor. So Nick and I think this was about a month ago, we got together and he drew out a second floor. So my plumber submitted the plans. We're just waiting to hear back.
Fantastic.
So as far as the construction part of it, excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, you good. Go for it.
As far as the construction part of it, I would say I'm very close to, once I get the approvals, I'll be close to finishing probably by the end of this year.
Nice. And that's huge because we have been chomping at this bit since 2023.
Yes. With the construction part of it, I couldn't put up a stud without the approval. So with the HVAC, I couldn't put up a piece of ductwork without the approval. So the second I signed the papers, I already had landscapers over there cutting down trees and cleaning up the yard, and I had a dumpster out there the next week. I mean, I was showing the city that, I'm taking this serious because I believe the 2 of the previous owners who owned the building did nothing with it. They just held on to it. So within the first month, they already saw progress. That's how serious that's how serious I am about the project.
A lot of times with the city of Milwaukee land sales, they require you to show some progress within a certain amount of time, or they will do what they can to take back the property. And so that's why it was important for you to continue showing that progress and making some benchmarks along the way so that the city doesn't try to claw back the property.
Okay. Devon, did you have another thought you were trying to interject a second ago?
No, I was trying to get an insight into, how the permitting process has been going so far. I detect that you have that you were proactive in some of the actions you took regarding the building, but how was the city take? I imagine this is in the city of Milwaukee. So how was the city dealt with that? Have you had much resistance to having started some aspects of the work prior to the issuance of the construction permit?
I've had hurdles every step of the way. I believe my best experience was the day I went in to sign the papers.
Okay.
I felt like I was a celebrity. I had, employees standing up from their cubicles. Hey, this is the gentleman buying the property on 𝘗𝘉𝘊𝘐, and I felt pretty good about the project. So I felt that once I got the ball rolling, that it was going to be a smooth process, but it wasn't. I've had hurdles from the fencing that I wanted to put up, every step of the way. And I'm not sure if you're ready to dive into that yet, Nick, but
I was going to try to methodically walk people through, but we were one step away because, the planning and the documentation is where we linked up, right, in order for you to submit to plan review, correct? So maybe we just talk about 2 seconds about just the planning and documentation phase. So then we can best, I guess, maybe frame the conversation for plan review, because that's once you get, like, you acquire the building, and then you literally, that's where the architect's doing their drawings and you're really actually baking in what you're doing, correct? Obviously this is the phase that I play into a lot as an architect, literally trying to, extract every single, code implication and get those into the drawings, and almost, pretty much setting you up, right? That's what we did. We set you up so that you could say, hey, you were telling me exactly, like, hey, we need this, we need that, especially, how it came down to how you logistically worked with that. Your space is kind of split into two. You have the office space, and then you have more so like the shop space, right? And there was this large wall that needed to, that was kind of, it used to be there, right? But was that a fire that took it down, or what was that or was it just removed?
I'm not sure. I believe that there was some construction that someone had started by some amateurs. I can't say, because a lot of the stuff in that building was not cold, was not right. And according to the plan reviewer, you know as well as I know, he was asking questions about why am I moving the locations of the restrooms. Well, I bought a shell. There was no restrooms here. There's no plumbing pipes. I don't really know.
Yeah.
So,
and you had significant water in the basement and all that kind of stuff as we kind of even started the documentation process, correct?
Well, I can dive right into it. When I bought the building, it was February 17th, 2023. There was about 4 feet of water in the basement. Right. I wasn't discouraged because as I said before, I know enough people in the trades that I can probably get somebody to come through fairly quickly to get things done. I pumped all the water out. I hired a sewage company to come through and snake the sewer, and they said everything was fine. Then I hired a foundation company to come through and inspect the foundation. He said the foundation was great. He didn't even charge me for the visit. Once I pumped out the remainder of the water, I noticed that there was new plumbing in the flooring, like new drains and new sump pumps. So I just energized the sump pumps and all the water was gone. So that was actually a sigh of relief. So I didn't have to get anything done with the sewage. I didn't have to get anything done with the foundation. So that saved me a lot of money that I was expecting to spend.
Okay, fantastic. So yeah, that was kind of going on simultaneously. I remember because I was doing some field measurements and we went down in that basement. You had everything linked up. So I guess Devon, Alex, do you guys have any thoughts on?
Well, just a very quick comment that was running through my mind as we went through the discussions of what was found in the building, and one thing that owners should recognize, that when they purchase a new meaning new to them building, is that you do in fact take on all of the problems of the building, meaning that if previous owners went ahead and made illegal changes, and I'm saying illegal meaning it wasn't permitted, the new owner becomes responsible for any illegal work. So the previous owner went in and did made an alteration that did not meet the code at the time when the alteration was made. The fact of the matter, or actually did not meet the code, the current code, because if no permit was issued at that time, then everything is judged under the new code, which now means that you will become the new owner is now responsible for making good any deficient work that was done at the time. So that's something to look out for. I mean, granted, with me in my mind, as I always tell anybody with whom I speak about buildings, they can always be made correct. They can always be made okay. The issue is, in some instances, the cost. There's always a cost to make any kind of modification. So the more modifications that one has to make, the more costs. And then in some instances, cost might not be as big an issue as time. So one has to also consider the impact of all of these unknown stuff or unforeseen stuff to the schedule that you had set up for opening or occupying the space.
Right. I came into this project fully aware of all of it. And the wall that Nick was referencing, I was going to tear that down anyway. So I had a new design, I had a new layout, and everything Nick designed for me came from my mind. I just drew it out on a piece of paper. So that anything that was illegal was going to be corrected no matter what, because I didn't like it, and I don't have to be a carpenter to know that, hey, that's not right. You know what I mean? Because I've been in construction so long. So yeah, so I came in and into the project fully aware of all that. What I wasn't aware of, and let me know if I'm jumping the gun a little bit, Nick, I wasn't aware of, they gave me 18 months to complete this project. I said, okay, that's fine. That's more than enough time to complete the project. So then I started getting $3,000 fine, $4,000 fine for debris. And I'm like, okay, well, why am I getting a $4,000 fine? I said, has anybody been here? And each letter said, based on our last inspection. So I'm like, okay, well, when's your last inspection date? Because I have a dumpster out here. I'm in the middle of construction. Everything that you're saying is null and void. It's non-existent right now. So code violations inside the building. I got new construction going on. So which code violations are you referencing that you're giving me a $3,000 fine for? Did you call me to say, hey, can we get into the building to see the status of it? None of that. I was just getting fines. And when I called to inquire about this, it was almost, well, I'm sorry, you're the new owner. You have to pay for that. In my mind, because the departments don't communicate, if you give me a project and you're giving me 18 months to construct or rehab the project, well, maybe some of those fines or some of that stuff that existed before should be put on hold or should be non-existent. Because if I'm going to completely rehab it, those issues that were there before, they're not there, So that was my main issue, but I did end up speaking to a supervisor who's been very, very helpful. I won't name any names. And he erased all of the fines except for one. And one of the fines he put it on hold, but he can't erase it until I fully occupy the building.
Ah, okay. So at least there's been a level of helpfulness in that regard.
Again, I didn't understand why I was being fined in the middle of a 18-month construction phase. And when I asked the questions, well, that's not our department. Well, it's still, I'm pretty sure you can walk across the hall or walk into a different cubicle, to be able to communicate with these people. When I worked at We Energies, when we logged into our computer, I can log into a certain address and I can see everything that was associated with that address. I can log into the city of Milwaukee website right now, me as an individual, right? And I can see every fine they've gotten, every permit they've pulled, I can see everything that they've done. So when I call and I inquire about this, you're saying that's not my department. If I can see it, I know you can see it. And then it becomes, okay, it's about money, because until I worked my way up to the supervisor, nobody was moving. I owed this money and I had to pay this money by this time.
I got you. Alex, what can you speak to as far as when it comes to like cross collaboration or that process of, hey, this has been assessed, I guess, what can you speak to in regards to your experience being at the city?
Well, you're right. They were not communicating.
That's the loudest sigh I've ever heard you make.
I heard that too.
Well, it's disappointing that you are essentially a service industry being with the city of Milwaukee, right? With the municipality. You're providing a service. And so you should take that in mind and actually provide a service and be helpful. And if you don't have that mentality, like, why are you there? You're a public servant. It's within the definition of the job. And so you're right. People were not communicating. They should have communicated. Construction, permitting, and inspectors were not communicating. And so you were dealing with a couple different inspectors. You were dealing with with existing code enforcement people who were putting these fines on you.
Uh-huh.
And they do not talk to the construction inspectors. And the construction inspectors may sometimes talk to the building plans examiners. So you have 3 different groups of people you're dealing with. And your mind, it's all one thing. In their mind, it's 3 separate things. And so that's where a lot of the confusion comes. And they do 3 different things. The existing building inspectors or the commercial code enforcement, they're responsible for fire inspections and code violations. They see a building that's been, vacant for X amount of years and owned by the city. And the only reason why they didn't do anything, because it was owned by the city. And now that it's sold, they're like, oh, I have a property I can make my numbers on and say I've been doing all these things. And it's an easy target, unfortunately. So navigating that across all the departments and getting, and mind you, you were sold a building from one section of the government, Department of City Development. Now it's being transferred to Neighborhood Services. Neighborhood Services has a different objective. So now you're navigating those processes. And so it would be helpful if they were like, hey, from DCD, we sold this building. They have a contract with us to get all these things done. It'd be helpful if you, as Neighborhood Services, don't do your enforcement, or, you can keep tabs on it, but you shouldn't be fining or anything because they have the contract. That kind of communication doesn't exactly exist, or is very sparse, which makes things difficult for the customer, you being you, as the owner, builder of your project. You're trying to do a good work in the community and to revitalize a building that's been vacant. Why then should you be penalized for that?
Absolutely.
So that's an issue amongst the ones who are on the ground doing enforcement, because their objective is different from your objective and different from the other objective from the real estate side of things.
And to be fair to them, Alex, statutorily, they are forced into different objectives. The definition of the rules in the statutes are the way they play them out. They are, you have one set of people who do enforcement, another set that does review. It's complicated that way. Where we all agree is that, there has to be a way to have the communication work, that notwithstanding the disparate roles that each one of these people play, they all know what's happening, and based on an understanding of what's happening, people get to use discretion. Because the harsh reality is that the guys in enforcement, that's all they do. They get information that says that there is some delinquency here, and they are required to provide punitive measures. I mean, that's just that's the harsh reality. The thing though is, if there were a system in place that allowed for nice, easy communication among each one of these disparate areas, the experience could be much better for the public. And just for clarity, my experience has been that this issue is not unique to the city of Milwaukee. Many of the other municipalities that I have had, the larger municipalities, because the smaller municipalities, it's the same person that plays this role. So it's not, it tends not to be as troublesome from a communication perspective. But with the larger municipalities, this is often an issue.
What I wish they would have done is just when you call and you ask a question, actually be helpful. Okay. So it's something that I don't know, especially I'm a newcomer in this, if I don't know the answers to the questions, okay, hey, can you just lead me in the right direction? And I think that's in every area of where you do business, where you're trying to get a loan, where you're trying to buy a car, hey, we can't approve you for the loan right now, but if you go do X, Y, and Z, that can help you. I'm not asking for somebody to hold my hand, but perfect example. I was told that there were grants for this building. I put quite a few dollars into this project of my own money because I didn't want to take a loan. And two, I didn't like how I was treated when I called to inquire about the grant. So I called and inquired about the grant, and I think I called about a week or two after I purchased the building. The gentleman that I spoke with, he said, well, why didn't you apply sooner? I said, well, I was, instructed by the person that was in charge of selling me the building to not apply until I knew I was going to get the building. And I agree. I'm like, why would I apply for something that I don't know I've actually won the bid for yet? So, and he was, he's pretty quite rude. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to feel like I'm begging for money, So therefore, if I have to deal with this gentleman and, be it right, be it wrong, if I have to deal with this gentleman, I prefer not to, and that's the treatment I've been getting through the whole process. They're always on the defense. I haven't, other than the two individuals that have been helping me down there, everyone is, and I think I know where the pushback is because they probably get a lot of aggression during the day from certain people day in and day out. And I can understand that. But everyone's not that way. And especially if everyone's not coming at you that way, every response shouldn't be a defensive response like this is it or else. No one's trying to be helpful. No one's trying to lead you in the right direction. So what do you do? When you're trying to teach a kid how to ride a bike, you say, here's the bike, go ride it. That's not how it happens. You know what I mean? So just a little bit more help or a little bit more advice of things that I shouldn't have to research, because I was told about the grant. He said, you should have done your research. No, he said, ignorance of the law is no excuse or something like that, right? That's what he told me. And I'm like, did he just really say that? You just really insulted me right now for something I didn't know. And if I can't ask the source, who else am I supposed to ask? So do I Google it? What do I do? And that's the experience I've been getting, and not just from that department, from the fencing department. I have a contract with my neighbor He owns the property to the east of me. There's no doors on his side. There's nothing but glass block windows. So I went to him and I asked him, I said, hey, can I extend my fence from, your building to my building? He said, absolutely. So we signed the contract. We did everything. So I submitted that with the permit, and I was told that regardless of the contract, that we still couldn't do that.
So, Alex, correct me if I misspeak, but the codes strictly that form of agreement, does that, to the best of my recollection, that does not satisfy the code or the ordinances requirements for conditions that would allow you to put an otherwise prohibited or non-permitted fence, right?
Technically, in something like that, you would probably have to have like a deed restriction or some sort of survey recording that would allow you certain things, because that becomes to attach it. So there are things like that are possible. The question is it worth your time to try to go after those legal remedies to allow certain things like that? Because each property is its own thing. And so they look at the bounds from property line to property line. And so you'd have to have some, I'll say, legal means in terms of the property resolution on the deed and survey and property recording to allow those cross property situations.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess the point I'm making is that there might be some argument, some legitimate case they had with respect to their enforcement requirements. The issue, though, where you and I are on exactly the same page, it doesn't hurt them. It's a simple matter of explaining, we can't do this for this reason. But if you and the owner were, for example, to take these additional steps, then it would be okay, rather than just telling you can't do it. Almost everything can be done with assuming certain conditions are met. But so I am in full agreement with you that it's simply a matter of just communicating to you what needs to be done in order to satisfy the requirements of in this case, it's a fence. So I don't know exactly whether whether there was a concern from a building code perspective or just a city ordinance perspective. I don't know your specific situation, but
I believe it was a city ordinance thing. It had nothing to do with this. Mm-hmm. The black fence, fence that I have going. I did it anyway.
Right. How many fences, how many feet is this? Because we're talking about literally, so, just imagine you got a parking lot, right? And, you're building to building on your parking lot, right?
Yes.
And I'm just kind of explaining this for Alex and Devon's, perspective.
It's 6 feet.
What are we talking here? We talking about 6 feet. Extending, there's your property line happen to be 6 feet off of the neighbor's building. You see what I'm saying? But it still looks like just your lot.
Correct.
So we're talking about taking that fence an additional 6 feet to close off essentially what would be assumed your space in totality. The only thing that signifies that this is not your space is the actual property survey that shows that, hey, 6 feet from your neighbor's building, your property line ends for some reason. So what we're talking about is 6 feet of fence.
And this property has been used that way, right? This parking lot has been used that way since even before I purchased the building.
Yeah.
It's always been used that way. The only thing that differed was I put a fence up.
I am with you. I made the just in the interest of making sure that we recognize that there could be theoretically there could be instances where this minor fence might not be that minor, if you get what I'm saying, as far as the ordinance is concerned, and in some instances, even the building code, because egress could dictate that you have reduced the distance from your point of exit discharge, and cause all kinds of problems code-wise. So,
well, that would not apply. That would not apply.
No, I'm with you.
So, the fence is the minor issue. So, as my main issue came with my plan review for the building. Okay, so my plan review took a total of 1 year before I finally got an approval. It was in the review for 9 months before they actually started the review. And when I inquired about it, I'm sorry, we're short-staffed. So they're short-staffed. They were real polite to tell me that they were short-staffed. Okay. But that's 9 months that I lost. Okay. So once we got the plan review, he denied it for 3 months. And it was, if you read some of the emails, it is my assumption that this, it is my assumption. So you don't assume, just look at what Nick has on the plan. This is what we're trying to do. And this is the simplest, in my opinion, the simplest of the simple projects. And I've been on some very, very complex projects. I've wired up a COVID lab. You understand what I'm saying?
Without calling any names, I just by what you described, I could almost tell who the plan reviewer was. But that, obviously we won't use any names. But just by virtue of the comments you described, I could almost tell who the plan reviewer is. But that's another issue.
Nick said, hey, we should make the code for the ADA for the bathrooms is going to change September of next year. We should, design this for that code. Absolutely. Let's do everything to meet the new code that's coming up. Sure. So then I guess for the space, I'm only required to have 2. I have a third one that's going to be in the shop. And he's trying to say, hey, that has to be ADA also. I've met the requirement with the other 2. So why are you trying to make this one, which is already cinder block? Half of it is like cinder block. It's already there. You know what I mean? We don't have to do anything with it. So you're trying to say I have to tear this out and extend it into the firewall, which there was a fire door. Remember the fire doors? And, because we reclassified the building, I just put a regular garage door there instead of that sliding door. And we went back and forth for like 2 weeks over that. Literally 2 weeks. Just recently, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. Just recently, my HVAC plan is the same plan reviewer. My HVAC plan, he literally went back it was about 2 weeks again, right? Regarding the fence and the trees that he wanted around the condensers on the outside. So I basically said, hey, can we make it? I replied to the email, and I was pretty much letting Nick do most of the conversation. So I just said, hey, can we just make this conditional? Can we just approve and say, hey, I'm more than willing to do anything that you guys are telling me to do. I have no pushback on what you're saying that has to happen. But this is holding up my plan review. All of our conversations right now is about this is required. This is required. That's cosmetic. This is not life safety. Can we focus on making sure that we have the life safety stuff covered and then make the other stuff conditional? And it was an absolutely no. So I requested a meeting with him and his supervisor, and I left the meeting feeling like I was attacked. They kept cutting me off when I tried to speak. Oh, we're not going to focus on that. We're going to focus on this. And I literally had to get assertive in the meeting. I literally had to get assertive. And it was one of those, I'm not here to argue. I'm here to try to get some, put some money into this building because hey, guess what? I'm going to be paying taxes. You sent me an $8,000 tax bill. I paid it. You know what I mean? So if I decide to walk away from this project and the city takes it over again, well, now the next person, they're going to have a easy project because I've done most of the stuff. All the code violations are gone. All the, there's new roof, new wood, new studs, new everything. So it wouldn't be wise for me to pull away at this time. And then in the meeting, it's like, well, it's not your fault. It's not our fault. It's your contractor's fault for not providing the right information. Well, my contractor provided the right information, but we're going back and forth about a fence. We're going back and forth about trees. So once I had to write, and also I had to write a letter saying that I cannot use my parking lot for parking. Literally, I have a 2,000 square foot parking lot that unless I go through BOZA, I cannot use it to park vehicles. It's only for access to the garage door on the east side. So I'm like, this has got to be ridiculous. This has nothing to do with the plans for the building and the inside. This has nothing to do with the HVAC, but we're going back and forth for the HVAC plan review, and you're talking about my parking for the 2,000 square foot parking lot. So Nick drafted a letter. I had to sign the letter saying that I will not use this parking lot for cars. To me, that's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. That is beyond ridiculous. And then the supervisor, he's backing his guy. Like, no one down there can tell me that this is okay. Do you want me to complete the project or not? Okay, because in the midst of all of this, I've had a plumber take off with money. I've lost $8,500 of money from a plumber that I'm trying to, go through other avenues to get that back. So that's one contract that I lost and money that I lost. So I have another contractor. He's talking about pulling, from the project because of the plan review. Like, I can't afford that. Why can't you guys make this easy? Why can't somebody say, hey, what can we do to help them? I shouldn't have to request meeting after meeting after meeting to speak to the supervisor, getting nowhere, walking into a room where I can cut the tension in the air with a knife. And I've already lost the second I've walked into the room. And all I want to do is complete my construction projects. I'm not, as you can see, well, you can't see, but if they were to see, if someone was to come out to the building, they see that I've put every permit, I've done everything to code, and there's tons of progress on this property. They don't seem to care about that. All they seem to care about is what they see on paper. They don't seem to care about that. But he was kind enough to go through and take a picture of my building to show that I do have vehicles parked in the parking lot, to go back and forth with me for 2 weeks about why I can't park my buildings in the parking lot. And that's on an email. So I'm glad he did that because I'm keeping the email thread of all his assumptions. You're going back and forth about a parking lot, me parking cars. I'm keeping that because if I have to take this a step further, that's all my documentation. There's no one in their right mind, and correct me if I'm wrong, can tell me that has anything to do with life safety. And I'm sorry, I got a little passionate right there, but hey.
No, absolutely. I think part of the objective of these conversations is to kind of discuss these kinds of stuff, which you are absolutely right that there ought to be a much better way of communicating much of this stuff. The reality, though, is that in this city, the city of Milwaukee, and and even more so in many of our neighboring cities and towns, zoning matters because parking is considered a zoning matter. So it's not, like you correctly say, it's not the life safety piece that comes into play here. It's this quality of life consideration that comes into play here. So the landscaping piece, for example, is considered a real big deal to many in the code, in the city ordinances, because as far as how it makes the city feel, and this is I'm saying this because that's the theory, that the plan reviewer will argue to you that basically his job is he doesn't make the decision as to what things are important. If the ordinance say you having this tree and this kind of tree with this at these intervals in the front, and that the fence has to be constructed a certain way and aligned a certain way, whether he agrees with that or not is neither here nor there. His review must be consistent with the requirements of the ordinances. So that's the argument he'll make. The reason I empathize with you is because we also know that notwithstanding all of these, both the ordinance and the building codes provide a certain level of discretion to the reviewer, or it uses the term official. So the official has all kinds of, I shouldn't say all kinds, but a fair amount of latitude and agency with respect to how they interpret to what things will make a certain work conforming to the code. So again, it's a matter of them being able to just deal with you as an individual, deal with you as a person, deal with you, allowing themselves to understand your special case, explaining their job, because they rightly have a job to do. And like you correctly say, to us, the life safety pieces would appear to be the important things. But when they are told by an ordinance that they must subscribe to, that a tree or a plant is an extremely important thing, they kind of have to review in that context. Again, you are very right that most reviewers would probably not take the path that your reviewer took. And as I mentioned, you have some reviewers that are not necessarily going to be experts at customer service, and some who don't see their jobs as having a significant customer service component. I'm deliberately being deliberately being politically correct there, but the reality is that you have some of these who aren't, in my opinion, who aren't as skilled at conveying the code requirements to the customers as others are, and it's sad, and that's because you having this bad experience unnecessarily.
Well, I'm being told that that's the top plan reviewer down there. So, you know what I mean? So it's kind of hard to...
Yeah, I bet that's not the case.
Before I started this project, I deal with, like I said, I'm in construction, so I deal with a lot of developers and people that flip houses, flip properties. Most, I'm not going to say most, a few of them have said that they will never buy another property from the city of Milwaukee because of all of the boundaries that they have to go through. They'd rather buy in West Dallas and Wauwatosa. They'd rather invest in those other municipalities instead of the city of Milwaukee. And I'll be fine, because going in, like I said, the day I closed on it, I felt very positive about this whole project, because I almost had a standing ovation the second I walked in the building. So I'm kind of joining that. I'm not going to say I'll never say never, but I'm to the point now, once I get through this, I don't know if I'll ever buy another property from the city of Milwaukee.